Okay, students, this is your potter's wheel. Different parts of the potter's wheel I want to tell you about. This is your splash pan. The splash pan connects like this underneath the wheel head, so to catch all of the water and the slip and the clay that will splash around as the wheel head is actually moving. This right here is a bat. This is what you will be putting your clay on, and then this is your wheel head. The wheel head has 2 pins in it that you will line up with the holes in the bat to put it in place. Your splash pan slides in. The big part slides from the back forward, and you might have to wiggle it a little bit. And then the front part is going to slide in from the front, and it's going to connect right underneath. And you just have to kind of dip down so that it attaches and move it around a little bit so that it's centered. So now that's ready to go. Each wheel has a foot pedal. Make sure the foot pedal is in the off position before you turn the wheel on. The switch is on the right side. You want to go just flip that switch up, and then you can test the wheel, make sure that power is connected by pushing forward just a little bit. Okay, so now that my wheel is on, I have my apron, my hair is tied back, no jewelry is on, including watches. Remove your watches, and your nails have been trimmed short so that they don't want to go past your fingertips. And then you have your clay. So the 3 clay balls, I'm going to put one in the center of my wheel, of my bat, and then I'll just set the other 2 to the side here. And then the tools that I'm using are the needle tool, my sponge, my modeling tool, which I'll be using the tip, and your metal rib, which you can use to help you scrape if you need to scrape the clay off. I'm going to set those on the wheel bench, not on the bat. Never, ever just set your tools on your wheel head, because if you go to turn those on and you forget they're there, that's going to spin, and it's going to, like you just saw the clay, it's going to shoot it off. So never keep your tools on your bat. In order to center your clay, you want to make sure that the ball is as round as you can get it, and you want to try and get it as centered as possible when you kind of throw that down. So one trick that I use, and you also need a bucket of water. I'm going to set that there, hopefully. Actually, I'm probably just going to set it on the side so it's not in the way of the filament. Normally, you keep this bucket of water in front of you so that you can easily access it. When I fill this bucket of water, I fill it up to the number 2 line, no higher than the number 2 line, which really is not very much water. These buckets are a lot bigger than what we actually need them for, but we'll also add the extra slop that we get off of the clay as we're throwing back into this bucket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my finger in the bucket. I'm going to turn the wheel on, and I'm just going to kind of make a bullseye, right, so that it's centered, and then I'm going to throw my clay down. So you can see right there, if you miss, like it's really, really off, then take it off and do it again, because it's so much harder to center if you don't get it right in that middle section. So on the button on the right side of your wheel, you've got the power switch, but you also have a reverse and a forward. So if you go push it up, it's going to, I need this wheel to spin in the counterclockwise position, because I'm right-handed and I want the clay moving away, coming into my hand and moving away from me, and not the opposite. If you're left-handed and your dominant hand is here, you want to reverse that, and so that the wheel is spinning in the opposite direction. So I have put my foot pedal all the way down. So this is as fast as the wheel will go, and then I'm going to take my foot off. So as I'm leaning in and I'm working, I'm not actually changing the speed of that wheel. So once you get your speed set, just take your wheel off. Then I'm going to take my sponge, dip it in the bucket, and I'm going to wet my clay. So when I wet my clay, I just want enough water for that clay to hydroplane or just slip through my hands as I'm working. If you have too much, then you're going to be spraying out to the splash pan, but you're probably going to be spraying your neighbors and other areas around there, and that means you're using too much water. I'm just going to get that sponge wet again. I want my hands wet. And then I'm going to set that to the side. When you start to put your hands on the clay, you want really strong, firm hands, but that strength actually comes from locking your elbows into your thigh or your hip, right? So these are the strong parts that you can brace your arm against. So when that clay is pushing against you, your arm doesn't move because it's locked against your hip. I have one hand on the side, one hand on top, because I'm going to compress the clay first before I try and push in to cone. So I'm going to compress the clay. And it's not centered, it's wobbling, but I'm compressing it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently squeeze. And as I compress the clay, my elbow is locked into my thigh, so that's not going to move it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to take my fingers, pinky fingers, grab the clay here, and I'm just going to squeeze. As I squeeze that clay, the only place for that clay to go is up. Okay, and you don't want to do that necessarily like all in one. You can I'm going to grab some more clay. I'm going to squeeze it together so that it's coned up. And then I'm going to compress and push down again. This is getting all of the clay particles all moving in the same direction, so they're all working together. Okay, and then I'm going to do that again. So I can use all this slip. I can, use that to lubricate my hands so that the clay's working, like slipping through without grabbing on. The clay starts grabbing, you need to add more water. And as I'm doing this, you can feel the clay start to kind of move together into one motion. And you can tell it's centered because there's no wobbles. Okay, so I'm going to push that back down. Mostly my left hand is just kind of my brace, or I'm guiding it. This is a little extra clay. I'm just going to drop it there. I want a dome shape. So this is flattened out. The width of this determines what you're going to be making. So this right now is just, I'd say it's between 2.5 to 3 inches wide. And I have just centered it, right? So I can feel it. There's no wobbles.